Welcome back to another 100 horror movies you've got to check out. I was really excited this week because I got to watch the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which, believe it or not, I have not seen. That is another cool part about doing this for myself, not just for you guys. For somebody that claims to be into movies as much as I am, and to have one of my favorite genres be horror, there are a lot of movies on this poster that I haven't seen. I really don't know why. I guess I just needed the right kick in the butt. Hopefully this is having kind of the same effect on you guys as well. Maybe there was a movie you were thinking about or didn't even know existed, because there's a few of those I ran into on here as well. And maybe this opened your eyes up to a new film that might be one of your new favorites. Speaking of which, I don't know if you can notice, I have the new Dr. Quackenstein's Creature shirt. I'm so happy. Let me show you a little better picture here. And talking about going back and seeing movies that might become your new favorites, I definitely have a new take and a new set of emotions for Frankenstein. And that specifically comes from my viewing of it on this list. Which, if you have any questions about Dr. Quackenstein, you can find a little bio blurb on the Spreadshirt shop of Lucky Duck Entertainment. I'll add a link down below. And you can even pick up the new stickers that are on there as well. Let's get back to Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. It's an American sci-fi horror film based off of the 1954 novel Body Snatchers. This film takes place in a fictional town in California called Santa Mira, which I already have an idea for the road sign that I'd like to see on it. Maybe when Natalie gets settled in her new place, we can get some more artwork, because I'd love more movie shirts. This film starts off with a psychiatrist named Dr. Hill, who's called into an emergency room where a screaming man is being held in custody. And this man is Dr. Miles Bennell, played by a very young Kevin McCarthy. This is a face that, even if you don't know the name, I know you've seen this face in movies. I just recently rewatched UHF, which he is in. He's also in Inner Space, which is a great comedy with Martin Short that you should definitely check out, because I'll be rewatching it soon. He was in the Twilight Zone movie, which, floating around somewhere, is a meme that a buddy of mine, Derek, made. Kevin McCarthy is in that meme as well. I don't know if I have it. If I do, maybe I'll post it on Instagram. So keep an eye out for that. And Derek, I still haven't forgiven you for it. Miles identifies himself as a doctor to Dr. Hill and explains what's been going on the past couple of days and why he is in hysterics. And it starts off with something that I think is actually way more terrifying than the movie, and it's an actual diagnosis of a mental disorder called Capgras delusion. And that's the belief that your relatives and loved ones have been replaced by identical looking imposters. Ah, that's terrifying! That's gotta be terrifying, and my heart goes out to anybody that has dealt with that in any kind of way. But unfortunately, the fact that that exists gives Miles a reason to write off how these people are feeling. Miles meets up with an ex-girlfriend who, if I understood correctly, was married. And the reason why I say that with such a confused face is they lip lock a lot in this movie for an ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, and one of which who is married. But maybe I just misunderstood a line or sentence, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of adultery going on in this movie. Later on that night, Miles and Becky are called to one of Miles's friend's house because he found a body that looks a little suspicious. So the four of them, Miles, Becky, Jack, and Jack's wife Teddy, are discussing this body that they found, how it looks very human but without the details, like it's like a rough outline or rough sketch of a person. And it also appears to be growing still, which is super weird. And they decide to wait and see what happens, which is a terrible idea. Miles and Becky leave, telling Jack and Teddy if anything happens to call them. And of course, Jack and Teddy fall asleep. This person vanishes, so now there is no proof that anything has happened. But when Jack and Teddy find that the body is missing, they call Miles. Miles rushes over, sees that there's an issue, thinks that Becky might be in danger, runs back to Becky's house, finds Becky, finds a duplicate of Becky, and runs back to Jack and Teddy's place. Now, I realize I'm going a little fast here, and there's kind of a reason for it. This film comes in at about 80 minutes long, so it is pretty fast-paced in the movie to get this entire story put in, which is fantastic. It starts off right away catching your attention with, okay, Miles appears to be crazy in hysterics, and we got to find out why. There's a little bit of a lull for the build-up, but not much. And then we're really into the meat and potatoes of this film and this story. While the four are talking about what happened and what they've seen, they discover large pods behind the house. They kind of start putting together that as people fall asleep, the pods that look like them are somehow downloading the thoughts and memories from the people that have fallen asleep around the pods to replace them in society. At one point, we find out that they are alien spores that have landed on Earth and are slowly and very successfully taking over the human race. The only difference that's notable between a pod person and a real person is that the pod people lack emotion. And I've seen some real people in the world that have the same thing, or maybe I saw a pod person. We'll never know. The four of them begin to realize that the entire town is being taken over and that there is a good chance that they are the last four actual people in town. They decide to split up so that Teddy and Jack can go and get help while Miles and Becky distract the pod people by making them think all four are still at the house. Now, in movie reviews in the past, I try to avoid the spoiler of telling the end of the movie. However, I'm going to make an exception on this for a couple of reasons. First off, the fact that we're being told this story through a flashback kind of already lets you know what happens at the end. The end is Miles talking to Dr. Hill in the emergency room. So I don't think I'm giving anything away by telling you how he got to that point. There are two other reasons that I bring this up. One of which is an issue with the movie that I have, and then the other is a very significant part of what happened outside of the movie. I'm sorry I'm being so cryptic. Let me explain. Miles and Becky are running from the pod people, and they hide in a cave. They start hearing strange music outside of the cave, and Miles, like an idiot, leaves Becky alone. Now, this isn't a men leaves a women kind of idiot thing. I'm not misogynistic in any way. It's a splitting up and leaving people alone in this situation. You should never leave anybody alone. Never part ways in a situation like this. There's safety in numbers. When Miles goes to investigate the music and he comes back, Becky and him lip lock again, and he realizes that there is no emotion in the kiss. Becky has fallen asleep and become prey to the pod people. However, that is not how the pods or the pod people have been working up until this point. Throughout the movie, the pods take on the likeness, the memories, and all that stuff of people that fall asleep next to them, but it's the pod people that emerge, and I'm assuming get rid of the real people. However, in this scenario, there isn't a pod near Becky, so when she falls asleep and she wakes up as the pod person, it's almost like the reverse. I don't know how they did that. Maybe there was a scene that was cut that explains there was already a pod in there. I have no idea. I do know that there are remakes of this including Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, Body Snatchers from 1993, and The Invasion from 2007. And I've only seen the 2007 remake, so now I gotta go back and watch the other ones to see how they hold up and how the story compares to each. But that is not the interesting stuff that happens outside of the movie. And here is what happens. After Miles realizes that Becky has changed, he makes an escape to try to get to the highway to warn everybody. And as he gets to the highway being chased by these pod people, he causes a giant traffic jam and begins shouting at everybody that the pod people are here, they're invading. Nobody is believing this screaming lunatic in the middle of the highway. As he is yelling and trying to convince people of what's going on, he sees a giant army truck filled with pods going down the highway. And he reacts in the only way you can when you realize you've lost. However, outside of the movie, the studio did not like a pessimistic ending. They wanted a happy ending for this alien invasion story. Which, in the book, from what I read, there is kind of a happy ending. I like that they changed it for the original ending of this movie, where it was not a happy ending. But when the studio saw how the movie ended, and that the humans didn't win, they're like, yeah, we need something with a little bit more optimism. And that was when the idea to film it as a flashback came into play. At the end of this film, the emergency room gets a call that there was an accident on the highway, and the truck involved in the accident tipped over and spilled out a bunch of pods. Dr. Hill gets on the phone and calls the FBI, which I don't know if that's who you would call, but I guess. And there is a possibility of a happy ending for this film. So now we get a happy ending that still isn't the happy ending from the book, but a different optimistic ending. I'm very confused on why they did that. To me, I find that super interesting that they did it. And the directors and the scriptwriters of this film were not happy with that decision, but they had to keep the studio happy. Which I think is why independent films are getting as popular as they are, because the directors and the writers have more say over what's being done. And I know there are a lot of actors and directors that are only taking on films if they get complete control over everything that's happening. I think I'd rather see a bad movie that was done exactly the way the director and writer wanted it, and as I'm saying this, The Room pops into my head. I think I would rather watch that movie than a movie where the director and the writer had a plan and the studio came in and said, no, we need this, 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 and this, and they kind of shoehorn it into a movie where it wasn't supposed to be. Now, there's some other stuff that I would love to talk about with this movie, but I'm already at like the 29-minute mark on this recording. I don't know what it's going to be after I edit it down, but to try to keep this short, I'm gonna wrap this up here. Maybe if I ever get a podcast of these movies going, we'll be able to go more in depth with all of the thoughts of the behind-scenes stuff. But for now, let's get to the scratching of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And here is the scratching off of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'm sure there's got to be a person behind this pod, right? Oh, it looks like this might be Miles. And there... God, he looks terrifying like that. Oh, and that's... Is that red part of his face? Or have I not scratched everything off here? Hold on. I think it's a little column A, a little column B. There is the Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. So that is the scratching off of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. Our next film is going to be Dracula from 1958, which is going to be the second Dracula film, but the third film about Dracula if we're counting Nosferatu as the Dracula ripoff. So I'm very curious to see how that is going to measure up to the two previous movies. So make sure you check back next week to see my thoughts on that one. I want to take this time to thank everybody very much for watching these videos. Hopefully you've hit the buttons below, liked, commented, and shared. Very big I love you, thank you to my Patreon subscribers. Mwah, you guys are the best. They got the first look at Frankie on the My Monday movie review, and you're going to be able to check out their names at the end of this video. If you guys want to be part of the Patreon club, there's 2 tiers. One includes another weekly video that you guys can check out. Until next week, I will catch you next Thursday. I love you all. Later days.